UFC Vegas 103 was last night. I have all the fights lined up here, and I'm going to tier them from fight of the night all the way down to DC's diet, the worst thing that you can consume. We're going to get this started with the early prelim opener of Charles Johnson versus Tamirov. Really weird card placement on this card, I want to say. I did not understand how they structured the card from top to bottom. Johnson was the only other ranked fighter outside of the main event. I get that they wanted to have fans tune in for the prelims, but this just feels disrespectful. All in all, I'm going to give this fight a B tier. Johnson started really slow. He absolutely worked Tamirov in the third round, but in the first round, he kept slipping and falling over. His length was a little bit awkward. Tamirov kept catching his kicks, and he couldn't really get going a bit, so he lost the decision 29-28. Is what it is. Kind of sucks. I was high on Johnson going into this fight. I still think he could do good at that division, kind of become a gatekeeper in that top 15. His Joshua Van knockout's still super impressive, but he didn't get it done, and it kind of sucks, but, new prospect to potentially look out for there in Tamirov. Next up, we had Lee versus Aldrich. This is going straight in DC's diet. If you consumed this fight, you had a bad night. Lee is on a 5 or 6 fight losing streak now, I believe. Yeah, so Lee is on a 6-fight losing streak, making her 13-11. Terrible matchmaking, terrible fight, all around, horrible experience to watch. Aldrich couldn't even get the finish. This was a decision. I don't know how you don't go out there if you're this prospect that was a huge favorite like Aldrich and you don't get the finish, but this was just so unmemorable and terrible. Thankfully, it picked up from here. We had Silva versus Almeida. I'm going to give this fight an A tier, I think. I'll give this B. I'll put this beside Johnson and Tamirov. I thought it was good. There was some really good back and forth exchanges. Silva's really tough. Almeida had moments as well. It was looking like a decent kind of scrappy war. Not the best one of the night, so that's why I have it in B tier. I was thinking about A, but I think B is a good place for it. It is along the lines of this Johnson-Tamirov, a little bit one-sided, but still a fighting effort from the other side. And next we have Ramos versus Chepe Mariscal. In terms of overall performance, I would probably go B tier as well. Chepe is really good, and he needs to get off the prelims. We need to see him on a main card or even throw him on a pay-per-view. This is a guy that fans get excited about. He's taken the names of so many good prospects and so many hype, fun, more lesser-known fighters, but he's a good fighter, man, and he doesn't deserve to be on this random Apex card. I mean, I'm glad he was, because this card actually ended up being a lot better than it looked like on paper, entertainment value-wise, but, pretty one-sided performance. Chepe didn't get the finish. It was kind of a classic Chepe Mariscal performance. He put the pressure on and he got the decision, and it wasn't the flashiest thing ever. It was exciting. There were some good moments, but I put it in B tier. I think that's a good place for it. There were better performances on the card. Like Patterson versus Barlow, I'm giving this an A tier. Patterson, underdog, getting the knockout, getting the finish. Very exciting. Exciting prospect. It was an exciting fight. Brought the momentum up on the card. We finally had our first finish of the evening after not a slow start. These weren't terrible decisions, but it was time for a finish, and I think that we got a really good one. Following that up, we had Austin Lane versus Pinto. We did get a finish here. Because of the finish, I'm going to give this B tier. The fight leading up to the finish, not the most exciting, kind of an average heavyweight fight. Lane, I think, was doing more work than Pinto. Pinto just had to find the right shot. Once he did, Lane went down like a ton of bricks. But just the lead up to that moment wasn't super exciting. Like I said, classic heavyweight fight, sluggish, sloppy, not a lot connecting. When it actually did connect, it made for a pretty exciting finish. I think B tier is a good place for it. It wasn't as good as the A tier performance, but I don't think it stoops down to C tier. We still got to see a knockout. It was still a good heavyweight knockout. All in all, pretty good fights up to this point so far. And then we had Emil versus Gomez. I'm actually going to give this my fight of the night. I think that this fight was super exciting. Both guys were kind of clip farming a little bit, but Gomez kept repeatedly throwing the spinning back fist. But these dudes are two really tough guys, and it was a close fight. It was close to call. It was close to score. Emil got it done. This was exciting back and forth. Another war on the card. Not the most finishes, but we did have a lot of good war decisions, and this was, to me personally, it was the best one. Probably the best war on the card. I think a lot of people would probably give it to this fight here. I think that this fight was great. I'm going to give it A tier. I don't think it was my fight of the night because I think, you know, it was kind of a weird fight. The momentum shifted across the fight, I believe. I don't think it was as back and forth. I think that Hacker Pass really completely diffused him in the first round. And then Ribovic kind of took over in the second and into the third. I know some people are calling it a robbery. I wouldn't call it a robbery. I'd call it a close fight. Also close, hard to score. Ribovic did outland Hacker Pass in the second round, but he also threw almost 200 more strikes than Hacker Pass over the fight and made quite a smaller amount more. You know, he only landed a mere small margin more and threw about 200 more. Completely inaccurate striking from Ribovic, and I think it cost him the fight, honestly. And I think that besides the knee in the third round everyone gave to Ribovic anyways. I think the damage that Hacker Pass landed throughout the fight was a bit better. It was cleaner. Obviously, still one of the best fights on the card. This was a war, it was a brawl. It's hanging up there with the top fights on the card. I think it was probably the second best fight on the card. But, you know, I thought that the Emil versus Gomez was a little bit better personally. I'm also disagreeing with the UFC officially here again. They gave it to Hacker Pass and Ribovic, but, you know. Next up, we had Brundage versus Marquez. And I'm actually going to give this one A tier as well. This is surprising. It might be surprising. On paper, you had a guy who's 10-6 and a guy who's 9-5. Fighting in the co-main event. Above all these other great fights, I was really confused on the placement of this fight. It didn't make sense to me at all. And these guys, you know, despite what they're calling online as a mouthguard gate, these guys had an epic brawl. Just absolute slugfest. Both of these guys lost their mouthguards. You know, the refs stopped the fight, potentially gave each guy the wrong mouthguard, which was really weird. Completely halted the momentum of Marquez while Marquez was pushing for the finish. And then Brundage comes back and gets the finish. Marquez turtles up, he gets the TKO. You know, good win for Brundage, man. I don't like to hate on people necessarily. I think that Brundage is a guy that's easy to clown, but I want to see him do good. If he has good performances, you know, Marquez is a finishable guy, but did we think that Brundage had the finishing power of guys like Gregory Rodriguez and the other guys that finished Marquez? No. So I think this was a really surprising fight. When the bar was set really low, it delivered and it exceeded greatly. And you know, you like to see that. You know, obviously you don't want to be disappointed by fights, and that fight showed out. And we had the main event, the fight I was looking the most forward to, Manel Kape versus Almabayev. And I am going to give this fight a C tier. This is the second straight main event that has ended due to an eye poke. Now, this one wasn't due to the doctor actually coming in and stopping the fight, but Manel Kape blatantly two-finger scraped the eye of Almabayev and then used it in a combo and followed up with the left. Just a weird finish. The first time that he touched Almabayev's eye, I think he poked it or he kind of scraped it with his finger. The ref stopped the fight, noticed that it wasn't an eye poke, made the fight continue, and then the next time when Kape actually eye poked him, the ref didn't stop the fight. So, you know, it's the classic, if you're not cheating, you're not trying for Kape here. It felt really dirty. The finish just didn't feel clean. It didn't feel as good as the last finish that he had over Silva. Disappointing way to end the main event. You know, I thought that the first round was good. It looked good. And then I just hate to see fights end like that. It takes credit off of the finish. It makes me lose a little bit of respect for Kape for trying to be dirty and finish the fight that way. When he's talented, he doesn't have to do that. You know, he's crafty enough with his striking. He can get the finish done on his own. He doesn't need to rely on the eye pokes. But it's the UFC, and we know that now, you know, if you're not cheating, you're not trying. Like I said, eye pokes are basically legal at this point. They do not call stoppages for them. They do not deduct points for them. Song Yadong got a win off the deepest double eye poke I've ever seen in my life. Kape gets the win here. Disappointing way to end an actually very good card. I think that, you know, like I said with talking about the Brundage and Marquez fight, when the expectation was low for this card, nobody was talking about this card online. It looked really, really weak on paper. It's only a 10-fight card, which is just extremely low. And it delivered. Every fight, you know, besides the worst fight of the night on there that I had, every fight was good. Every fight was enjoyable to a point. I think everything above B and up is a fight that I would rewatch again, and it was an enjoyable fight, and I'm glad that I checked it out. Cannot wait for next week, UFC 313. I will be doing some sort of prediction video for that this week for you guys, and then we'll be obviously doing the tier list on Sunday. Yeah, we'll see ya.